Has the removal of religion and of God and of public prayer causing us to be more immoral in our society today? That is what we're discussing today on The Opinion. I am Mirna Santiago, and joining me, as always, for our discussion is my co-host Adeline Ortiz and our guest, Professor Ed Grippe.
Hi.
Hi, Ed. Well, I know that we had some comments on our last show and some very interesting feedback, and I think you have those handy, Mirna. So
I do. People actually came out in droves for our reparations for the descendants of slaves segment on YouTube and left us tons of comments, so I just wanted to acknowledge some of that. Otherwise, it wouldn't be the show where your opinions matter. So
that's right.
So here we go. Stu McConicle said, there is a plethora of historical documentation about tribes in Africa selling and trading other Africans for goods to many other countries, not just the white man. There were also black slave owners in the South, so the issue of reparations, in my opinion, seems to be more about keeping a wedge between us as people. Yes, the slave trade was horrendous for that period of time, but it's over, and we need to focus on creating unity instead of finger pointing and playing a blame game, he says. Danny Carter, thank you for writing, says black people are still suffering from the results of slavery to this day in more ways than I have room to type. We are still targeted by the police, discriminated against in hiring and economic opportunities, and have the issue of self-hate and the exaltation of all things white, which is all a direct result of slavery. CJ, the original, wrote, reparations has nothing to do with white guilt. It's about justice, which is long overdue. Slavery was global at one time, yes, which means that everybody had slaves, including Africans. But the transatlantic slave trade was owned and controlled by Europeans who used racism to justify their crime against humanity. There is also a comment that we got from our show on whether it's genocide, what's going on with the black community, especially black males. And David Burke wrote, open season on black men, ha 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 ha. Lack of education, ha 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 ha. People who live in Asia walk 10 miles to go to school, but blacks have affirmative action, welfare handouts, and government jobs, and they're still complaining. He says, what you have is no work ethic. So yeah, it's genocide, but it's automatic genocide. It's auto-genocide. They're doing it themselves.
Wow.
So again,
strong opinions out there.
Yes.
That's great.
But again, thank you for writing, and even when you disagree with us, I mean, that's really what the show is about, no?
Absolutely, yeah.
So let's get into our discussion for today, and it is whether the secularization of our society, the removal of God, of religion, of public prayer, has led us to be more immoral. The religious right in this country, the Christians in particular, they're the most vocal, are saying that because prayer is now prohibited in schools and people have objected to the phrases God bless America and God we trust and one nation under God, there are so many more crimes going on in our society. A lot of public places are prohibited from putting up nativity scenes, which is a symbol of Christianity. And they're saying that the removal of God from our society has had an impact to the point where there is an increase in murders, particularly mass murders, and suicides. So, Adeline, what do you think? Has the removal of prayer has an impact?
Well, I think it's definitely had an impact, yes. I think that it's had a negative impact that we've just removed God and all reference to God from everything that we do. We've just become such a politically correct society that we're afraid to say anything anymore about anything because you're going to get sued or you know, somebody's going to get upset. But at the same time, I think that it has hurt us to sort of remove that element of spirituality and, you know, morality, a sense of right and wrong from the classroom, from the workplace, and just to completely take it out of our lives. And I think that human nature really tends to move more naturally towards all things negative. I mean, just think about how easy it is to get upset. Not so easy to apologize, right? How easy it is to hold a grudge for years and years. Not so easy to forgive. And this is all part, I think, of religious values, having some religious values, having a sense of right and wrong, wanting a sense of peace and harmony in your life. And I think that by taking that out of the classroom and removing it from schools and from workplace and other places in our lives is really hurting us in a lot of ways. I think that there is a natural interdependence between religion and morality, but they don't necessarily go hand in hand either. I really think that the problem is when children are growing up in homes and households where there's neither. What do you think, Ed?
Well, I think we get a historical perspective. The Constitution has the Establishment Clause and the freedom of belief part of the First Amendment. The freedom of belief is that everyone has a right to go and believe as they wish, not to impose it upon everybody else. And that's what the Establishment Clause says. That the Establishment Clause says that you cannot go and establish any one religion as a state religion. So secularism comes out of that, and I think there's also a history behind that. There was a lot of religious persecution that had occurred that caused people to come from Europe over to America to avoid such events. Unfortunately, what happened is that they brought along their own prejudices and biases, and then you started to go and be biased against Protestants of Catholics, Catholics against Protestants, both against Jews, and so on. We have, the idea that, the idea that religion and morality seem to, in many people's minds, go hand in hand. But being an ethicist and having studied ethics, reason seems to want to be introduced, and reason is not the sole province and often sometimes is missed by some of the religious. So the idea that religion in and of itself is, and I would go and kind of dispute the idea that it has been removed from society. It isn't going to be a religion that should be dominant. The problem there is that morality, in the sense of becoming either the province of a group or no group, is the issue. And that's the Aristotelian, there's an Aristotelian golden mean. The problem is too much of something or too little, not just one or the other. So finally, just to go and wrap this up, the need for morality seems to be important in our society, but it isn't the strict province of one religion or all religions. Atheists can be also very moral.
Well, let me ask you this, because you say that you take issue with the comment that we are removing it from our society, and you're saying that it really hasn't been removed. But the Christian right, for instance, are saying that it has been removed, and in actuality it has, because we started off with, you're right, the Establishment Clause and the separation of church and state and what have you. But despite having said that, we did have public prayers, because I remember growing up and there were prayers every morning before the start of school. I also remember, always having the nativity scenes for Christmas, and now those are being removed. And people are saying, well, you're doing this, you're removing the prayers, you're removing that. Now you're taking the idea of God out of these kids' minds, for better or for worse, but it's for worse, because now they're not starting the day with the prayer, they're not focusing on what's good, and now we're seeing suicides, we're seeing mass murders. We're seeing that. So, and you talked about corporate good and how that's even missing now. So, but most corporations, most companies don't start off with the prayer. So how do you equate the fact that these corporations now are so entrenched in doing all of these horrible things, as you say, where there's really no prayer there? I mean, maybe we are removing it from other aspects of society, but.
Well, I don't know about, bringing it into the workplace. I mean, you're really dealing with a lot of different personalities and adults who've already made choices and sort of past that critical stage of developing, I think, their levels of morality and ethics and right and wrong. And I think that's part of the reason why we see so much corporate wrongdoing, going on. These are adults who are already making decisions, who already have their moral foundation. Whatever is part of their fabric, it's who they are. They're already living it. When I say remove from the workplace, as an example, I had a colleague who put up a picture of, I think, Jesus Christ or something, and just little things to represent his Christian beliefs, and he was asked to take them down. Okay, so something like that. Like this is your office or your desk, your workspace, and if you want a picture of, you know, the Last Supper or Jesus Christ or whatever it is that you want there, as long as it's not, you know, sending some sort of negative or harmful message to people around you, what's wrong with that? I mean, have we just become so politically correct that we can't even tolerate that anymore, that we can't even allow that anymore? I love that you referenced the Constitution, because of course the U.S. Constitution does afford us a lot of different protections, including freedom of speech, and I think that the definition of freedom of speech has been so broadened now to protect so many different expressions of speech, which includes, of course, you know, these nude bars, right? Where all you go and women take off practically all of their clothes, if not all of it. And that's okay. We haven't gotten rid of those. They still manage to exist. Of course, we've moved them to, you know, time and place, and we've put certain parameters around them, but we haven't gotten rid of them. We haven't done away with that because it is freedom of speech. It's a form of expression, you know, there's bodily expression and so on and so forth. So it's okay to keep these things, which erode our society in many ways, but it's not okay for the kids at school to open up with a morning prayer.
It's the difference between free and informed consent by an adult and an imposition upon a young developing mind. For example, in Alabama, there was this judge who wanted to institute the 10 Commandments. Now, what could be wrong with that? The people of the book, that would be Jews, Muslims, Christians, should all be embracing it. But whose interpretation, whose wording is it going to be? Sure. On one. Two, whose prayer is going to be said at in the church? And what about that the student who is not is an agnostic or an atheist?
Exactly.
What happens to them? Are they going to be ostracized because they're not going to want a prayer or not say a prayer? The idea here is that you want the ability for any particular group, a parent, guiding their children, to bring their children to a church, a synagogue, or a temple, or not to. You want to be able to go to a public place and feel it is a public place, because you mentioned a creche, the nativity scene. Well, that's a Christian view. If I was Jewish, if I was an atheist, if I was a Hindu, what about that? Where is the Hindu prayer that is going to be said? How about a Buddhist who goes and says the prayer is going to be so misguided because it's going to lead you away from spirituality? So if you're going to go and say, well, we want to go and bring morality back, how about a morality of care? A morality of care that actually engages others that might not agree with you.
Well, I'm gonna say this and bring it back to the question, which is the increases now in suicide rates. This is what people are saying there, and the murders that are going on, the Santa Barbara murder and the Columbine and all of these mass murders that are going on. First and foremost, I'm going to say that these mass murders have always existed, but because we have this 24-hour news cycle now, we're more conscious of them. Sure. You have the Holocaust, you have the Inquisition, you have mass murders, to the scale that we have not seen again since they happened. And those happened, at least the Inquisition, that happened in the name of religion. So it wasn't even something that we can say, well, somebody just went ahead and killed people. This was the church that sanctioned the Inquisition. You're going to go out and kill people who do not believe in Jesus Christ as we believe in Jesus Christ. Being an agnostic, I am an agnostic person. I'm a deist. I do believe in God. I just don't believe in all of the dogma that goes into various religions. I would not want my child to say a prayer of any denomination at the beginning of the school day. I don't mind if they have a moment of silence, if you want to have a quiet meditation for a couple of minutes before you start the day to focus your mind on what you're going to be studying and what you're going to be doing that day. But to say you have to say Jesus Christ, the Holy Spirit, or whatever it is, I would not want that. I'd be one of those parents who'd be screaming at the school if they say we're going to do it, because I feel that I am perfectly equipped to teach my son morality, to teach him what's good and what's bad, and how to be a good person without saying, if you don't believe in Jesus Christ, you're going to hell. Or I just don't believe in it. So let me loop back around. I'm going to pivot a little bit on this, because one of the things that came up when I was looking up this topic was that there are a lot of Christians out there. Kirk Cameron, who used to be on Growing Pains, I believe it was, he's a Christian evangelist now, and he has a video out, and he's saying Christianity is under attack. He says, right now, certain states have tried to ban abortion, and it hasn't passed. It's been vetoed. He's saying gay marriage is being legalized at unprecedented rates. So, is Christianity under attack? Not just religiosity, but Christianity itself, is it under attack in this country?
You know what? I don't think so. I don't think so, because what you call an attack, gay marriages laws being passed in the States, is that an attack on Christianity? What, because they don't believe? I don't see how that is an attack on Christianity. Okay, it's the states doing what they think is in the best interest of their citizens of that state, and I don't see anything wrong with that. And I don't see anything wrong with gay marriages, and I am a Christian. Okay, so I think that if Christians feel themselves attacked by the fact that states are passing gay marriage laws, and they really need to consider their own belief systems, because gay people were made just the same way we were, by the same God, supposedly, right? So if we're all creatures of the same God, what makes a gay person inferior to you or to the next person? So I don't think that that's an attack on Christianity. I think that that's just a very narrow and limited belief system held by Christians.
Some Christians.
Some Christians.
Right. Well, let's go and work it from the inside. So Jesus is said to be talks about the law of love. So if love is at the center of something, then love is what should be the main focal point.
Sure.
If there's love between heterosexual couples, fine. That's the ideal. If there's love between homosexual couples, that's fine. It's the idea of love. Non-exploitative, non-commoditization of people should be the key. You don't have to be religious to go and understand that. It might help that somebody gets a religious background to begin the process, but it's the idea, and leaning towards Immanuel Kant and his two categorical imperatives. One, make sure that anything that you do can be done by everyone without a contradiction. So if I steal from you, I don't want to be stolen from, so that's a contradiction. If I want to go and tell you the truth, I want the truth back. That's not a contradiction. And the second part of it, the second categorical imperative, and again, he was a religious person, but he separated it out. He said, don't use another or yourself merely as a means, but always as an end. In other words, treat the person with dignity. Don't go and use them as a commodity, as an object, because you alienate them from their own humanity. Now, if religion can bring people to that, fine. If a person such as Schindler of Schindler's List can come to that as an atheist, fine. The point is love of another, care of another, respect of another. And if religion helps, fine. If somebody could get to that without it, why not? So the idea here is that from within the religion, Christian religion, the idea that you might hate or put aside or alienate people who are in love if they are homosexuals, people who are trying their best to go and live their lives, that is a problem.
But what if, say, you are a Christian, and now this is something that's on the airwaves? There are TV shows that are featuring homosexual couples. I'm a Christian, I don't believe in that. It's against my religion. There's mandates in Obamacare, for instance, that say, even if you are, I think it's been overturned now, but it initially said even if you are a religious organization and you have employees, you have to provide them contraception. I am a Catholic. I don't believe in contraception. So isn't that an attack if you're telling me I now have to be subjected to X, Y, and Z even though I don't believe in it?
I think that we kind of need to look at what religion is. I mean, what is religion but institutions, of belief systems? It's whatever your values are. And so I think that the lines blur when you get into religious belief, spirituality, and so on. And I think that horrible things have been done in the name of religion, and great things have been done in the name of religion. I think that when we focus on the word religion or institution of religion or the different types of religion, that's really kind of when we fall into some trouble there. Because as Ed is saying, if there's a positive message, if there's love or respect, and these are the sort of values that are being promoted through morning prayer or some exercise of meditation where you get to focus on your own, great. if you want to teach my children about, whatever the Muslim faith is or the Jewish faith, that's fine too, as long as there is a positive message that allows them to understand that what's being promoted here is that love, is that respect, is that sort of appreciation for individuals and people and so on. And I'm okay with that. I wouldn't have a problem with whatever type of, I think, morning prayer the school chose to open up with, as long as it's a positive message. And I think that we need to get away from the politics of it and the religious component and just focus on what is the message, and is this okay? Is this promoting good values? I mean, think about it. There's one thing that that Jews, Muslims, and Christians all agree on, with slight distinctions, as you mentioned, is the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments. And yet, consider that the bulk of the so-called religious world believes in the Ten Commandments. Stop almost anybody in the street. I don't think anybody can tell you what all of the Ten Commandments are. Okay, and yet they call themselves religious, but they don't know what the Ten Commandments are. These weren't recommendations. These weren't suggestions. These are commandments of values that we're supposed to be living by.
That's true, but you have versions of that in Buddhism and Hinduism as well. It's not the Ten Commandments as such, and the commandments also begs the question of whether there's a God. There's Socrates, who, if you go and read it very carefully, 400 years before Jesus is born, is living a life of what people would go and call Jesus. And here's a man who is deepening the understanding of his culture to such a degree that he not only lives it but dies by it. Now, if a person like that could go and do this prior to Jesus being born, then why do we want to go and fixate on commandments, because he wasn't aware of the Jewish commandments? If he could get to it in the way he did, then it opens up the door to this, maybe a spirituality, maybe a sense, a moral sense, that goes beyond religion, but could include religion.
Absolutely, I agree. And, and that is the end of our main discussion. Our lightning round discussion comes from the news cycle, and that is cheating scandals and side children all over the news. Donald Sterling, the owner of the Clippers, was done in by his alleged mistress, alleged. Bill Clinton almost lost his presidency because of the Monica Lewinsky scandal. Matthew Knowles, Beyonce's father, just had a child outside of his marriage, which promptly caused his wife to divorce him. Elliot Spitzer, the Love Gov, and so many others. So are successful people, rich people, more inclined to cheat? That's our lightning round discussion. Ed, let's start with you.
My goodness, they're all men. As if women don't cheat, first of all. Second, the idea that these are people in the spotlight.
We know how to do it. We're not
These are people in the spotlight, and unfortunately, all men examples. The idea that they're in the spotlight doesn't mean that because they're rich or they're famous that they cheat more. It's just that we notice it more. The idea that, again, just coming back to our previous thing, if a person is willing to go and use another or themselves as a means towards sexual pleasure and to alienate their family in the process, that's a problem, whether they're rich, poor, black, white, Hispanic, whatever.
Yeah. Adeline?
I agree. I don't think that being successful or rich has anything to do with cheating more. I think that it just gives you more opportunities and more exposure to more people, more options, broadens your options and your resources in terms of how you cheat and how long you're able to conceal it. And I think this actually ties in really well with our main discussion about morality. It's who you are at the core and what your values are and what your beliefs are and what you're able to do or not do. But success and wealth, no, I don't think that really has anything to do with it. I know plenty of flat, broke, poor, unsuccessful who've cheated, and plenty of women, so it's not something that's limited to men, and I think that men are probably getting a bad rap on the whole cheating thing, but I know plenty of women who have cheated, had affairs and long-term ones throughout their marriages, and were able to actually conceal it really well. So I think that when it comes to to cheating and affairs and concealing it. Probably women are the masters of manipulation in this area. They probably do it a lot better than men. So,
well, I guess it's the men that get caught.
That's right.
That's what we're seeing.
Or noticed.
Noticed, exactly. Yeah, I agree. I think cheating is a crime of opportunity. I've known a lot of women who have cheated and never gotten caught. I know a lot of cops, a lot of firefighters, and they're not necessarily rich or famous, but a lot of cops and firefighters because their schedule, because they can do double shifts and all this other stuff, or at least tell their wives and their partners they're doing double shifts. So it's absolutely, in my mind, a crime of opportunity. Well, that's it. That's all we have for today for the opinion. So for you viewers out there, we like to read your comments. We like to discuss them on the opinion. And after all, it is the talk show where your opinions matter. So please keep the comments coming.
Yes.
Keep sending us emails and watching us on YouTube. And we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for watching.
Bye.